have climbed mountains high. I carried you inside my heart when I took a stride. I am your memory, stories of you and me, moment of breaking free, so you can be, you can be. I am, I am, I am, hey, I am. I do not know my age, I am born every day. My spirit can't be gauged, I'm living to create. I am, hey, 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 I am, ooh, I am. I'm a grandmother, I'm a barefoot gardener, a lover, a healer, I'm a memory keeper. I am a dancer, I'm a freedom believer. I am a seeker, I'm a cultural weaver. I am, I am, hey, hey, I am, hey, hey, I am. I'm not your butterfly, I'm not your picture bride. I am a samurai woman who holds up at the sky. I have unbowed my head, I have unbound my feet, I have endured the heat. I'm not afraid to lead. Hey, hey, hey. I am a woman who holds up half the sky. You are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. Hey, hey, we hold up half the sky. We are the women who hold up half the sky. We are the women.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Chaucer's Books virtual author discussion with Nobuko Miyamoto, the author of Not Yo Butterfly, My Long Song of Relocation, Race, Love, and Revolution. My name is Michael Takeuchi, and I'm the events coordinator at Chaucer's Bookstore, a 47-year-old independent bookstore located in Santa Barbara, California. To purchase tonight's book, browse other books, or to check out our upcoming events, please go to our website at chaucersbooks.com. Here, our upcoming events, including Thursdays, will feature USC professor George Sanchez. He'll be talking with me about his book on the iconic Los Angeles neighborhood, Boyle Heights, through his book, Boyle Heights, How a Los Angeles Neighborhood Became the Future of American Democracy. As well as Nobuko's book, this is a University of California Press book. On Monday, June 28th, Jerry Schaefer will talk about his book, Cruising Through the Teens. And on Tuesday, June 29th, debut novelist Tom Lin will speak on his Far Eastern Western novel, The Thousand Crimes of Ming Su, a New York Times Book Review editor's choice. While my guests and myself are the only ones seen and heard on this webinar, there's a Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to utilize this throughout the program, and we hope to get to your questions at the end of the program. Tonight's event is being simulcasted and recorded for our YouTube channel. It will be available to view in perpetuity. YouTubers are encouraged to use the chat or submit their questions to our guests via email at events@chaucersbooks.com. Okay, I'm going to turn on our little recording. And here we go. We at Chaucers are so excited to welcome our author for the evening, activist, singer, dancer, Nobuko Miyamoto. Not Your Butterfly is an inspiring book that will leave the reader marveling at her incredible story. Tonight, you're in for a real treat. After speaking with Nobuko and our guest last night, I believe that the upcoming next hour may have you dancing, or at the very least, doing the slow head bob. To present Nobuko and our panelists, I'd like to introduce the editor of Not Your Butterfly, Deborah Wong. Deborah is a professor of ethnomusicology at the University of California at Riverside. She is the author of Sounding the Center, History and Aesthetics in Thai Buddhist Performance. Then Speak It Louder, Asian Americans Making Music, and Louder and Faster, Pain, Joy, and the Body Politic in Asian American Taiko. Please welcome the editor, Deborah Wong. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you so much for having us tonight. Tonight, you are going to hear Nobuko Miyamoto reflect on her extraordinary life, and frankly, you need to read her book to get the full sweep of that life. Let me tell you, this book is a great read. I am thoroughly biased in that regard, but I'm telling you, it is a great read. And I should also add that her life is still very much underway at, can I say, full tilt? It is. And you need to read for how she's woven together, music and dance and social justice work and connection across ethnic difference. And these are the themes for the conversation tonight as well. Let me very, very, very quickly just tell you that Nobuko Miyamoto is a true community-based artist. She's a third-generation multi-ethnic Japanese-American singer, songwriter, dancer, choreographer, activist. She has many different things, and usually all those things are going on at the same time. She is a legendary figure in the Asian American movement, and moving beyond those years of the 1970s, she's remained at the heart of Asian American activism. In 1973, she recorded what is now widely regarded as the first album of intentionally Asian American music. It's titled A Grain of Sand, and it is known, it is taught, it is sung. It is an album that is still alive. Nobuko is also the founder and artistic director of a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles called Great Leap, which is now over 40 years old and at the heart of interethnic artistic collaboration in Southern California. Nobuko is covered in awards and honors, and she's constantly asked to speak at community events because she's a mover, she's a shaker, she's this compassionate visionary, and she teaches us through music and dance how to stand up for social justice, how to build solidarities, and she always has several projects going on at the same time, but I'm going to say that 2021 is definitely a good year for her, aside from the fact that her memoir just dropped last week. In January, a few months ago, she put out an amazing double CD album through Smithsonian Folkways that pulls together 50 years of her music, including a lot of recent work. So that's really worth checking out. Tonight, you're going to hear three activists in conversation. We're joined by Diane Fujino and George Lipsitz, both of them faculty members at UC Santa Barbara, both of them extremely well known for their scholarly work. Diane Fujino has written and edited canonic works on Asian American activists and activism. She's followed the trail of Asian American radicals, including Yuri Kochiyama, Richard Aoki, Fred Ho, and others. And her latest book is titled Nisei Radicals. George Lipsitz has written many books on the long reach of race and racism in US American life, including quite a few iconic books on popular music. And he's attended for many years the work that's going on in East LA activists and musicians and community builders who model strategies for effective social justice work. And to George, a special shout out because he is the series editor at the University of California Press, and it's partly because of him that this book got published, that Nobuko's book was published through UC Press, and we're grateful for that. So thank you to Chaucers for sharing your space with us tonight. And let's welcome George Lipsitz, Diane Fugino, and of course, Nobuko Miyamoto.
What a pleasure it is to be here tonight, to be introduced by the great Deb Wong, who's taught us all so much. To be here with my colleague, Diane Fugino. We fought many battles together. We're happy to have a moment like this. And of course, we're so honored to be in the presence of Nobuko Miyamoto, who always gives us a chance to dance the way out of our constrictions. And you'll see in the discussion tonight and in the presentations how she works that particular magic. We have a small amount of time to talk about a book with really large meaning. The significance of this book is hard to capture in a few sentences because it's an unparalleled memoir of the full arc of a woman's life, and not just any woman, an artist, an activist, a mother, a community builder, a warrior for social justice. Beyond that, it's also probably the best description and analysis of the artistic process of any book that I've ever read. Preston Love's book, Thousand Honey Creeks Later, Charlie Mingus's book, Beneath the Underdog, talk about what it means to be a musician. Nobuko talks about what it means to be a dancer, to be captured by classical music and ballet, modern dance and jazz, to wind up being a political folk singer, a choreographer, a community activist who brings people together to create. She talks about her own coming to voice and reminds us that both art and politics are internal and external, that there's a journey we have to go through to overcome fear, to overcome our inhibitions, and to deal with the hurts of history and the wounds that have been dealt to us. But on the other hand, it also tells us how art is a way not only to find personal meaning, but to co-create with other people. Deb correctly described her as a community-based artist. She's also an art-based community maker. And I think that in this book and the extraordinary things that it does, we'll find new insights. They used to say that Duke Ellington's instrument wasn't the piano, it was the orchestra. And in my mind, Nobuko's instrument is not the guitar and the voice or the feet, although she's adept at all three. Her instrument is the human family, the connections that she brings together and the possibilities she enables us to see within ourselves. But this is also a profound book about the anti-racist struggle, about struggles for social justice, freedom for all people. And this is the area of expertise of Diane Fugino, who will now talk to you about that part of the book.
Wow. George just has a way of bringing out such importance in a book like this. It is indeed an extraordinary book, a marvelous book. I thank so much Nobuko and also Deborah for bringing this book into being. To read it is really amazing to me. I have known Nobuko from a distance for many, many years. I've known her in particular as somebody who's done tremendous work in the Asian American and Black radical movements of the 60s and 70s. And of course, we all know her for creating with Chrissy Jima and Charlie Chin, the most iconic album of the Asian American movement, A Grain of Sand, and that song, right? We Are the Children of the Railroad Workers, that deeply touches my soul as a Japanese American and as somebody who engages in Afro-Asian solidarities like Nobuko. But this book does more than that. I felt like I knew her from afar. I know her personally a bit, but to learn about her life and the choices that she's made and the ways that she's constructed her living is really incredible. She has worked very deeply in the Japanese American movement. I mean, I was just really touched by how deeply this is about community making and about living in community. She didn't have to live this way, right? She was already performing on Broadway as a teenager. She could be a diva to this day, and she rejects all of that to live communally. And I think some of this is because when she was younger, as a single mother and as somebody who was doing community work, financially, she had to live in interdependent ways. But it was much more than this. It was a political commitment. And I'm learning a spiritual value for her to live embedded in the histories of Japanese America, right? Living a daily and weekly presence at the Joro Shinshu Buddhist Temple in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles, living in the tradition of Black communal life, and that this is what speaks in her politics and in her art. And there are very few better models of solidarity making, and especially solidarity making through music than Nobuko Miyamoto. And she does this most powerfully through the Black Asian solidarities, in part because that's her personal life as well, right? That's her family. Those are her communities that pulled together to help her raise her son, of which she speaks with such sensitivity and such grace. But she also works in the Puerto Rican with solidarity with the Puerto Rican movements and the Chicano movements, which we'll be talking about later. And there's a deep indigenous culture that threads throughout all of the work that she does. And I'm amazed the way that she can bring together art and music and dance, with the politics. And the politics are really driving the kinds of work that she's doing. And so there's so much in this really rich memoir. And I thank you, Nobuko, and I thank you, Deborah, for bringing this into being.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your comments. And, it sort of lifts me up, actually, because this is my first attempt to write a whole book. And it's a long life. And but I felt compelled. Well, first, it was Grace Lee Boggs that told me I should write my book after I had worked in the community of Detroit with her in 2000, early 2000. And just before she passed, she said, "Nobuko, it's time to write your book. It'll change your life." It changed mine. And it certainly has been a deep and rewarding journey to sit, for the 5 years, off and on, not all through because I still had to do my work, but to be able to reflect, which I think community artists, because we're always on the warpath, we're always trying to raise money, we're always trying to get people together. We don't have a lot of time to sit and reflect each year the way Grace Lee Boggs and Jimmy Boggs did. But what a lesson! And she had a way of making assignments to people that I didn't learn about until I went to her funeral, and people started talking about these assignments that she would do. And I said, "Oh my God, that's what she did to me too." She brought me to Detroit and in 2000 to create a project with the urban gardening movement. And that just really opened up my life. So yes, so thank you for your reception to this, my first offering. It's a lot. For somebody who writes 3 verses in a chorus, it was a it was a big leap for me to do this. So I'm glad that people like it.
Are we?
Yeah.
I was wondering if we were going to the video clip.
Okay, let's, we can do that. Maybe a good example that will cover some ground really quickly is a song from our album in 1973, A Grain of Sand album called Free the Land, which was written to honor our brothers and sisters in the Republic of New Africa. And after we finish it, I'll read a little passage about what happened to us there. But this really shows our relationships, which of course began with Yuri Kochiyama. And I have to say that Yuri was the one who brought me into the movement. She was the one who was the big connector. I wouldn't have my baby if it wasn't for her. She introduced me to Attila, who became the father of my child, and really became my second family in New York City. So you'll see her and you'll see the scope of, so Free the Land.
This is a remarkable visual and oral treat. I have some questions about it, but
Sure.
Nobuko, maybe you want to describe first some of the images that people saw. They may not know exactly who all those folks were.
Right. So, well, of course, it was Yuri Kochiyama who introduced us to the Republic of New Africa because she herself was a citizen of the Republic of New Africa, not an organization, but really an idea. I mean, a dream. And people weren't members of the organization; they were citizens of the Republic of New Africa. So, also Matula Shakur, who you saw in that video, who is now a political prisoner for more than 30 years and should be released, but it has not been released. And Attila Ayubi, who was his partner, and both of them were part of Lincoln Detox Hospital, treating people who were on heroin with acupuncture. It was a very revolutionary idea and program. And Matulu's son is Tupac Shakur, so you saw pictures of Tupac there playing with my son when he was little. And Matulu likes to say that a grain of sand was on his turntable. In those days, we had turntables all the time, so Tupac knew all the songs by heart. I don't know if that's true, but anyway, it's a cute idea. And then my son, who painted the mural of Malcolm because his father was connected with Malcolm, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, really, because I wanted my children and grandchildren to know their story. Our stories have been invisible to ourselves, and that was one of my main reasons of wanting to write, because I want my grandkids to know their roots, their legacy. And let me just read a little bit, just to get a feeling of how Yuri did her work. So she invites us to sing at the Republic of New Africa. This is before this song was sung, before this song was written. The very first time we're singing at this rally before the UN for the Republic of New Africa. At the start, we are the children of the start of We Are the Children, the audience of Black nationalist revolutionaries looked at us politely. As the song unfurled our history, we are the children of the migrant worker. We are the offspring of the concentration camp, sons and daughters of the railroad builder who leave their stamp on America. Well, we could feel them warming to us. But by the time we got to, we are a part of the third world people who will leave their stamp on America. Well, we had them all the way. That song wasn't one of my favorites, but at that final moment, it was powerful as we belted out with our feet planted and our fists piercing the gray sky, America, America. I felt the force of our ancestors come through us. The crowd erupted. Right on, free the land. We were no longer foreigners, outsiders. We were brothers and sisters. We were brothers and sisters. And with that simple song and the presence of a small band of Asian Americans, a bond of solidarity was formed, just like Yuri knew it would.
Thank you, Nobuko. This video is very powerful to me, right? Starting with Yuri and Malcolm at the Yuri Malcolm mural that exists now in Harlem.
Yes,
The
in
shirt that
126th
Yuri's
Street.
wearing,
Yes.
yeah, the shirt that Yuri's wearing with Mumia Abu Jamal, right? Another political prisoner, is actually a shirt that I gave her, and
Oh my.
she's in it in a few of those clips because she wore it all the time.
Yes.
She loved it so much.
She loved
and
it.
this is who Yuri was, and I think that this is one of the things that I think that this video brings out, right? And in this moment of intensive, right, state and police violence against Black communities and ramped up anti-Asian racism, I really actually hope in this video, because I think it does thread these kinds of movements that you've been a part of and that Yuri has been a part of, to help us to think about a radical imagination and also how we can get there. And, I really love that you had that full photo of Mutulu Shakur, who, I know you're very close to, right? The godfather of your son, right? And who's in prison and suffering from cancer. And I'm wondering if you can speak to who he is, like he kind of, who he is and the kind of, extraordinary person that he is, and so many of these political prisoners. And there are movements to get out Mumia and Maroon Schultz and Sundiata Acoli and Matulu Shakur, and the work that needs to be done.
Yes. Perhaps Matulu is lesser known than many of the other political prisoners. So I like to wave the flag for him, and because he is the godfather of my child, and we've walked a long journey together. Matulu is truly one of the most beautiful souls that I've ever met. This is a man, even after more than 30 years in prison, the first thing he thinks about is how are we doing out here? He's not thinking about and complaining about his life. He suffered the death of Tupac while he was in solitary confinement. He suffered the loss of Afeni when he was locked up. And never got to go to a funeral. So, but yet he is sort of transcended, and he is a transcendent human being, I believe. He is there for us. He is a force, regardless of the bars around him. He is free already. That's the way I feel about Matulu. And speaking to the thing about solidarity, yes, I want people to know that this is not a new idea, that this idea has long roots. Of course, there wouldn't be no Asian American movement if there wasn't a Black movement. We were led. Malcolm was our leader too, So we learned from them how they organized, what they did, and we stood up because Black people stood up, and also because Black people put their arms around us as brothers and sisters. And just an example is Lincoln Detox was famous for using acupuncture to get people off of heroin. And how Matulu got that idea was that Yuri Gojiyama told him to go downtown and get acupuncture for his son. And so when he got that, for his son, he started thinking about, gee, I wonder if this could work to get people off of drugs. And he started researching, and sure enough, they started practicing and training people to be acupuncturists. And so this came about because of relationships. It wasn't just solidarity. These ideas jumped off because people were in contact with each other and they were sharing ideas. And just like family, go to this doctor, go to that doctor, or whatever. This is the way we moved. And so solidarity is sort of a big word, So relationships, I think, is that daily practice of knowing people's stories, hanging out, learning from them what their histories and their families are like. This is solidarity. It grows into solidarity in that big world of, movements, but it starts with relationships.
Let me ask you about one of the conduits of those relationships. You mentioned that if you had just been speaking at the meeting, that's different than singing. There are things that when they're sung, they're more powerful than when they're said. And when people get up and sing with you, that's different from just declaring solidarity. That's breathing with you, that's letting sounds run through the body. You can feel the vibrations in other people's voices. And this is something that I think is not unique, but it's singular about your art, that you involve people's whole body, all their emotions, all of their desire to act in the world. This is the first Asian American political group that most people heard, and you sing Free the Land for the Republic of New Africa. You sing about Jonathan Jackson being murdered in Marin County. You sing a song in Spanish called Somos Asiáticos in solidarity with the Puerto Rican movement. And that's different than just declaring solidarity. That's breathing together, it's moving together, and it's also enacting things that a lot of us only envision. And the question I have about this is that given how silenced and suppressed Asian Americans have been. And, your own descriptions of the Japanese American community, ripped from their homes, property stolen from them, their language banned, police and FBI surveillance. When they start to speak, they speak not only for their own freedom, but freedom for everybody. And you're able to, when you write songs, it's not like you have sympathy for the Puerto Ricans or the Blacks. You see your freedom as inextricably tied to theirs. And you not only declare that, but you work it out through shared cultural expression. And this, by now it may be second nature to you, but it is remarkable on the planet Earth. Not everybody operates that way. And I wonder if you could talk about it.
Well, Chris used to say that if it wasn't for the fact that Japanese Americans were in concentration camps, we would not have been politicized. So that experience actually deepened our empathy and understanding, had a little bit of an understanding what slavery was like, so our oppression is really is a door into understanding others' oppression and to deepen our own connection with them because we understand. I felt that way when Masai Hewitt was talking about Japanese American concentration camps in a speech that I heard him talk about it, and that he identified, that was coming at me, and so immediately there's this thread that connects us, and I want to go back to something about the idea of singing and what it does to the body. The fact is that Asian Americans did not have their own song. We were a songless people. We were a people who listened to other people singing and other people's songs and saw ourselves in them or wished we were like them. So for us to, and it really was a stumble that me and Chris stumbled into writing the first song after visiting the Black Panthers and after Fred Hampton was murdered. And taking those words, taking his words and turning in the People's Beat into a song. That was our first song. And we sort of stumbled in it. Then we saw the power when it connected to the people we were singing to at this convention, at the JACL convention, both the younger people and the elders. They had never seen Japanese Americans singing their own song. We felt it immediately. We felt, oh my God, something is happening here. And we were just, so that experience was a visceral thing between, there was a connection between people who are watching us. It was together. It was something that happened together. We all felt that together. So, and that happened repeatedly when we were performing around the country as troubadours, singing from one community to the next, in California, all across the country, that this sense of solidarity with our own people, because they had not heard music like this. They had not heard songs that said, we are the children of the migrant worker, we're the offspring of the concentration camp. They had never heard those words, but those words put into music and a beat. And the heartbeat, of course, it's sort of, that captures you in a way that maybe a speech cannot do, that comes through your mind, but music comes through your soul, through your heart.
Yes, absolutely. And such powerful words just hearing you speak about the work that your music did. And I am wondering if you can speak to the importance of a place like Senshin.
Senshin Buddhist Temple. Yes, it is. It is not in Little Tokyo. It's in South Central, actually.
Ah,
yes, and it's a temple that when I first came back to Los Angeles to live, because the 3 years that Chris and I spent and Charlie spent touring, that was just the beginning of our life as community artists. It was just the beginning, and we each in our own way after that followed different paths. We didn't force ourselves to remain this trio or, So when I went to Senshin, Reverend Mas Kodani, who I believe is a revolutionary in himself, and who was one of the founders of a Japanese American taiko, invited me into the temple and said, "Teach dance here. You teach a dance class." He gave me the key to the temple the first time I met him, so I could use the social hall to teach dance. And being part of the temple put me right in the community. I had not, my goal as a young dancer from the time I was 7 years old was to get beyond this community. Let me rise above this community. Let me be special, But here I was now digging deep into this community that once was the temple of my aunt and uncle, who were Buddhists, and that there were roots there, and there were traditions there. I was learning by just hanging out with Reverend Moss, just listening to him. And I have many, many songs and many projects that came out of his philosophy and just his ideas, really, that I turned into something. And actually, that was another assignment I was given, to write an obon song. So in no way am I a traditional musician, Japanese tradition, but he asked me, after being in the temple for almost 10 years, using their space, rehearsing, teaching, etc., how could I say no to that? Even though I said, "Look, I don't know anything about Japanese music," and he gives me a bunch of tapes to listen to. Go, listen. And I went home and I, for a few weeks, listened, and I just took it in and wrote a song with the instrumentation of Japanese American folk obon song. So a drum, a shamisen, vocal, call and response. And I wrote the first obon song in English. That's what he wanted. He wanted it in English so that young people, well, I don't speak Japanese either, that we would know why we're dancing in the circle. We would know why we're connecting with our ancestors by doing this. So the first time we did this with 18 temples in the plaza of the Japanese American Cultural and Community Center, 1,000 people in a circle dancing. And we musicians were on the Yagura, the central platform. And the sun was going down, and I witnessed these bodies moving in a circle. And I was like, I just was lifted out of my body, because I saw what Reverend Moss and what Buddhism was talking about, the idea of oneness. I saw it happening before my eyes. And then I just started singing, and then the music, everything all came together. And I realized the power of the circle, of dancing in a circle, that it takes us to our origins. We danced in a circle, when we were in tribes. This was the first way that people celebrated, asked for good crops, for rain, for whatever, coming into a circle. And that circle, the symbol of the circle and the actual practice of the circle is a powerful image to see, but also to be in.
You want to talk about how you continue to use that circle? There's a extremely moving passage in the book about in the circle we dance. I know this is something that has never left you. And, an Obon song in English is both about place and displacement. It's about where people are, where their ancestors were from. You're very grounded in many of the places you've lived, but you're not just somebody from LA. You've lived in Idaho and Utah. You met the American Indian movement in Chicago. You worked with Puerto Ricans and Black nationalists in New York. And yet everywhere you go, the circle in some way is home, and it's a way to come back and reconnect. So I wonder if you want to talk about that, and if you want to read that passage or you want me to read it, because it's of 100 brilliant passages in this book, this is one that people should remember.
Well, let me introduce that by saying that Quetzal Flores, and that's when I first met you, George. I think was at that the release of their album Imaginaries, and we were at KPBC in their studio, and they did a live concert of their album, and the instrumentation and their presentation was so beautiful and moving that they used acoustic instruments. I was just very moved by their music. It was so tightly knit and communal and respectful of their ancestors. And as I was leaving, I don't even know why he asked me. I didn't really know him. And he asked me to be there, and we all talked about the music afterwards. And as I was leaving, oh, we ought to get together sometime, just sort of in passing. And then, so anyway, I did call him after that because I was trying to write something and I was having trouble. And I said, gee, I wonder if I should call him. And I did call him, and that started out an incredible long collaboration, which led to Fandango Bon. He invited me to a Fandango class that he was teaching with Martha at Plaza de la Raza. And I walked in and he shoves a jarana in my hand and he says, play. And I'm like, what? And in their theater, I see that they're standing in a circle around a platform, a wooden platform, and musicians are playing around, and then they step on the platform and they're pounding their feet out in rhythms like a drum. And I'm going, wow, that's amazing. And after the session, I'm walking out and I said, gee, that reminds me a lot about Obon, except that we dance around the platform and the musicians are on the platform. I said, I wonder what would happen if we combined Fandango and Obon. And he just said, yes. And that was the beginning of a musical collaboration. And of course, I took them to see Reverend Moss, who set the cultural agenda for us. He says it shouldn't be a fusion. It should be a conversation. So we were told by him that we use your own form, stay true to your own form, but then converse across. So it ended up. And where are we with time? We have about 10 minutes left, don't we? So I'm going to read this because now we've been doing Fandango Bon, where we bring the Fandango community, the Chicano community together with the Japanese American and Asian American community, as well as African American, West African dance, and Sufi tradition, Muslim tradition. And now we're all coming together and we're sharing and learning each other's forms and dancing together, hundreds of us together. In an age in which most of us spend too much time observing the world through our rectangular devices, to step into the circle of Fandango Bon is a potent communal act. In this circle, we reclaim our power, our creativity. We make music with our own hands, our own voices. We circle the earth with our feet and remember we belong to it. In this circle, everyone is equal. Everyone is seen. Everyone has a place. In this circle, there are no borders, no us, no them. There is plenty of room for more circles. In this circle, we weave our many roots, knowing our diversity is our strength. In this circle, we are enacting the world we want to live in. In this circle, in this circle.
So powerful, such a beautiful encapsulation of not only what you do, but the hopes of freedom-loving people and people who love decency and want to live in harmony, not only with each other, but with the earth. Thinking in terms of circles, it's not greater than or less than, as you say, in the circle, everybody's equal and you can't make a circle by yourself.
Right. And we, besides protesting against a world that we don't like, we have to be creating and showing examples of the world we want to live in at the same time. And sometimes that's hard to do, or maybe it's the job of different people to do that, different peoples or different groups to do that. But we need to find joy. We need to find liberation isn't just about hard work and struggle. Liberation is about freeing process. It doesn't come at the end because this is it, honey. What we're doing right now, this is it, and we got to make it as good as possible and as fun as possible. That's what Chris always says. If it's not fun, why should we do it? It's got to be fun. And so this magic that we do as artists, it's got to bring fun into people's lives as well as open up their minds in a way that they could feel what liberation is. Even in that moment, they may not have words for it. They may not have language for that, but they know they felt something that they didn't feel before. And they felt it with other people who are different than them. And there's something great about that, So.
Is there more music or video you want to play?
Yes, I'd like to show you a clip of Fandango Bon so that you all can just get an idea of what we feel when we're doing it. And hopefully, a little later this year, hopefully we'll be back in the circle and you can join us. Let's see.
Fandango o Bon is a gathering of three distinct cultures: the West African, Mexican Son Jarocho culture, and the Obonodori, which is Japanese Buddhist traditions.
This is our third year, and each year the circle is getting more and more diverse.
As long as the energy is really good, it's very simple to collaborate. And everyone has their own instruments from wherever their country is. They all have the same roots when you really think about it.
Fandango, Obon, Polycultural Remix, Jam and a Prayer, Angelino Souls, Transforming Ethnic Borders, Birthing a New World.
We're building an idea that it's a good thing for people of different cultures to come together, to convene in a way that's maybe unusual, actually, because they actually get to participate in another form that's different from theirs, but then they can also see, there's similarities about this too. We want people to feel comfortable crossing borders into other communities.
It don't matter who you are or what you do in your life. If you walk down that street and you see all these people right here doing this beautiful thing, I swear
you're gonna want to jump in.
You're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
Where you're going to find people from so many different ethnicities coming together and having such a wonderful experience.
Yeah! We hope that we will encourage other communities of color to really deal with stuff about the environment. That's what this is about, connection to the earth.
We're trying to instill in people the idea that anybody can participate, and they should.
We're democratizing the arts. We're saying everybody should participate. And in a sense, this returns us to the circle of our origins, of our beginnings.
Wow, Nobuko, you are really showing, you are demonstrating in this all the things that you've been talking about, right? The ways that participation and moving the body, it allows us to experience something different that we can't just do cerebrally. I mean, they're connected. The sharing of cultures, right? The ways that we are connected through our retaining our cultures, but also connecting through our cultures.
Right.
And I'm also thinking about this circle. And yesterday was summer solstice, and I'm thinking about the summer, right? The sun, right? The revolution of the sun. And you said something in this one, which was that it's about the earth and the connection to the earth. And this takes me back to the first video clip, Free the Land, right? Which is also connected to, right? The land and what we do with it. I'm
Yes.
also thinking about the ways and the work that they're doing in Jackson, Mississippi with Cooperation Jackson, right? To develop cooperatives and an alternative economy to be sustainable, but it's also very much about ecological sustainability. And this gets me also, you're doing, there's so much that's in your book. All of this is in your book. It's so rich. But I'm also thinking of this moment as we, at least in the United States, are beginning to come out of COVID and needing to deal with the isolation and the illness and the racial violence and the traumas. And I know that you have practices that involve all the things we just saw and have been talking about, but other kinds of practices as well. And I'm wondering if you can sort of talk about the ways that you deal with trauma in ways that bring joy and healing and also enable us to fight for liberation.
Besides doing music and dance, I also do workshops and get people to tell their stories. And we do this in a circular way as well. We have story circles, but we also use movement and we use body to release memory, because memory is in every cell of our body. There is cellular memory. So, telling our story, and this is trauma is locked inside of us, and all of us in many different ways have experienced trauma. But we have to speak it. We have to witness it. We have to be able to witness for others and share, so that people feel a sense of safety. And this is something we don't have right now. It's very hard to find this sense of trust and safety. So creating spaces, and it sounds simple, really, is creating a space. That's what it is when we do Fandango Bone. We're just creating a space for this to happen. And there are other kinds of places that we've made, whether it's in a temple or it's in a social hall or it's in a school, we've done it in many different places. Creating a space is not just about architecture, it's about intention. Creating a safe and sacred space for people to be themselves, to be their whole selves. And this is a time when so many divisions are happening around us. It's really important for us to build trust between communities, so that we have a sense of we have a sense of safety and security within ourselves. It's not going to happen out there. It's going to happen us doing it. Just like there can't be just a law that says it's against the law to hate. there's more to it than that. How do we build this kind of trust and relationships with each other, and for people to know who we are. When you look at what happened to the women in Atlanta, the Asian women in Atlanta, that we didn't know their names for 3 or 4 days, we didn't know their stories. But when the same thing happened in Denver, boom, the next day we knew who those people are, we knew their relations were, blah, 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 we knew what they do. They don't know us. And there are assumptions about us that are, the yellow barrel still exists, So there's a lot that we need to do to let ourselves, especially as Asian Americans right now, and I think people are really making an attempt to open ourselves up to be known and be seen and be heard in ways that we haven't had before. And hopefully we'll be given a chance to do that so that things like this doesn't happen again. That they don't see us as this monolithic typecast that they have in their mind that is totally false. And so, yes, there's a lot of work to do. And as a community artist, I say in the book about that we need more community artists. We need more people who do this, like what I do and Quetzal does and Martha and all of us, that yes, we need, it's not a pyramid that there's a few artists up there that we look at, Joni Mitchell or whatever. Yeah, that's important too, but we have to drop and make the triangle on the ground like this and then turn it into a circle, because we need people on the ground. We need more artists. We need more creativity. And we all have creativity within us. That's what I want to do. I want to wake up the creativity in everybody to make people realize we can create this life. We can create the life that we want. We can plant that garden. We can figure out how to raise these children so they know that they're geniuses. This is what we did in the movement. We did this in the movement. When you had a kid, you created a play group, then you created, community to help you because we all needed help. And so that's what I learned, and what we learned in the movement at that time was learning by doing. We had a need, we did it. We didn't say, look for somebody else to do it. We said, look around to you, you can do it. We have the resources to do it. We have the ability and the capability and the imagination, radical imagination, to create the kinds of forms that will take care of us as a community. We don't have to wait for somebody else to do it. We can do it. And as we do it, then we'll find support for it, more support for it. We'll show that it works. And it is a matter of showing that it works. And that's why art is important, because it is performative. It is showing. By showing Fandango Bon, we show something, then people can understand it. They step in the circle and they understand it because they participated in it. Democracy only works because we all participate. But that's a practice. It's not, it's not watching to see the news, that's getting out and being part of the mess that it is. And that's what the fun is also, and that's where the relationships grow. So we have a lot of work to do. As my 111-year-old mother-in-law said, she was 108 when she said this, and we went to Mississippi with her because it had been 100 years since she, as a child, had to leave Mississippi because her father was going to be lynched. And so they left Mississippi, and my husband, when she turned 108, it would be 107, it would be 100 years since she had left. So we brought her back to Mississippi, and her father's friend was lynched in Mississippi, in Ellisville, and we went to that very spot where he was lynched, and we did ceremony there. And Tarabu, my husband, made a film about this whole issue and what we went through with Mamie. But the last thing that Mamie said when she got up and spoke to an audience in New York City, she says, I was a scared little child when I ran away from we left Mississippi, but I'm not scared anymore. And we have a lot of work to do. She said this at 107 years old, that an elder could see her work still in process, and that she knew that she lived this long so that she could tell this story. She found a new meaning in her life because she could tell this story. So telling the story, that's what I tried to do in this book. I tried to tell my story so I would understand it better, and people who read it, young people who read it, would understand, maybe see themselves in the world a little bit differently.
But, I think we're near the end of our time, but I hope you know, Nobuko, what it means for us to receive your wisdom, to observe your artistry, and to be pulled into the circle. It wakens something in ourselves that often we didn't know was there. And it is a great honor to be in your presence. Thank you so much for the book and for this conversation.
The honor is mine, really, truly. Thank you so much for your support.
George,
thank you to
Diane.
Chaucer's. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
George, Diane, Deborah, thank you very much. Nobuko, what a special evening. And we are very blessed to have you tonight. So thank you. Everyone, please buy Not Your Butterfly, UC Press. Thank you. And may everyone have a wonderful evening tonight.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.